My son's therapy dog was the only thing keeping him alive, until a hospital janitor took him for a walk and bragged. I held him down and poured insecticide in his mouth until his heart stopped. I didn't say a word. That was 9 months ago. This morning, her sister was sitting in her car, crying so hard she couldn't even start the engine. My son Ben was 5 when the doctors declared he had leukemia. He used to be the type to finger paint thank you cards for the garbage collectors every morning. But within a month, he looked like a ghost, wearing his own skin. He stopped talking and spent his days staring at the machines keeping him alive. But everything changed when I got Peanut. Peanut was a service dog who was trained to visit children undergoing chemotherapy in hospital. He had eyes the color of melted chocolate, deep and endlessly comforting, as if he could peer straight into your heart and soothe every ache he found there. It was like he had a PhD in loyalty. The second I'd bring him in from the car, Ben would reach out his arms and Peanut would hop up, maneuvering his way around the monitors, making sure not to touch anything. It was the only time my kid remembered how to smile. But it wasn't just Ben. The whole ward lived for Peanut's visits. Parents scheduled their time to when I'd be there, just to see their kids happy for 60 minutes. Until Margaret, a new janitor that was hired, started to clean the hospital floor at night. She was middle-aged, the type to have a permanent scowl on her face, gray hair pulled so tight it looked painful. Her favorite hobby was complaining about everything, especially Peanut. She started off as a regular Karen, gossiping about his disease risks to anyone who would listen. To avoid any hassle or lawsuits, I made sure to get him checked for fleas twice a week at the vet. But instead of thanking me or even just leaving me alone, she would just sneer and say that vets will say anything for money, that she was deathly allergic, which made me no better than a unaliver. Sigh. Anyway, a week later, Ben had a reaction to his meds and spent the night screaming. It wasn't until Peanut lied on his chest that he finally calmed down, and that's when I saw it. Margaret watching through the window, her face so contorted I could have sworn she was having a heart attack. Fast forward to the next night, when I was sitting on a steel chair in the waiting room. I had to go to the bathroom and asked one of the other moms to mind Peanut. But when I came back, he was gone. Apparently, the janitor asked the mom to take him on a walk. My heart twisted. I found Peanut half an hour later, but he wasn't his joyous self anymore. He was now completely dead, his carcass left to rot in the parking garage. 100 different emotions flooded my brain at once, but only one stayed, and that was rage. Because while I tried to process everything, I could hear Margaret in the distance. She was on a phone call, bragging about how she had held Peanut down and poured insecticide into his mouth and ears until his heart stopped beating. So I did what any emotionally stable, loving father would do. I drew up a revenge plan, not involving the police or court system. That was too nice. I wanted her to feel what Peanut felt, so I started paying attention to her routines. She parked her car in the same spot every night and always left it unlocked. Her pathetic self lived alone in a ground-floor apartment, and after a week, I struck gold. I found this condemned house on the south side absolutely crawling with fleas. I collected samples wearing protective gear and sealed everything in airtight containers. But it all started with some harmless gossip. I mentioned to day staff that I'd seen stray cats in the parking garage, made sure the rumors reached the night shift, left a note on Margaret's windshield about rats near her car. She started checking under her vehicle every night with a flashlight. During one of Ben's overnight procedures, I had 6 hours of solid alibi. That's when I striked. I carefully placed flea-infested fabric deep inside her car's ventilation system where she'd never think to check. I put eggs under the floor mats and in every crevice of her seats. And for good measure, I soaked everything with synthetic flea pheromones to accelerate breeding. Margaret came to work the next week, scratching her arms. By day 2, she had visible welts she tried to hide with long sleeves. And on day 4, the fleas were jumping visibly in her car and she was practically clawing her skin off. She started wearing gloves all the time and sprayed herself with pesticide between rooms. Then one night, it finally happened. She collapsed right outside the pediatric ward, full anaphylactic shock. Her throat closed while she clawed at her neck. They rushed her to the ER, but it was too late. Her throat had closed completely, and she'd gone too long without oxygen. Lol. The doctors tried everything, but Margaret died right there in the same hospital where she'd killed Peanut. The official cause of death was anaphylactic shock from flea bites. That final night, the reaction was instant and fatal. Oops. And thanks to my little rumors, no one suspected a thing. On my way out, I passed the morgue and watched her roll out on a white stretcher. It was the first time I had smiled since Peanut died. But the next morning changed everything. Woke up to knocking at my door, sharp and insistent. Opened it to find a social worker and a police officer standing there. The social worker was young, couldn't have been more than 25, with worried eyes. The cop was older, had that seen-it-all expression. They said my actions had been recorded recorded on security cameras. My blood went cold. The social worker explained that Margaret had installed hidden cameras all over the hospital months ago. Said she suspected people were stealing supplies, particularly from the pharmacy. The footage showed me entering the parking garage the night Peanut died. Didn't show what actually happened to him, but it showed me there when I'd told the officers taking my statement that I was in Ben's room the entire time. Turns out Margaret had a sister named Eleanor who also worked at the hospital. She was in administration, had access to everything including security systems and personnel files. While going through Margaret's things, she found the camera recordings on a hidden hard drive and turned them over to the police. Said she knew something wasn't right about her sister's death, that Margaret had mentioned someone was out to get her. I hired a lawyer right away. Lawrence said the footage didn't prove anything except I was in a public area. Lots of people used that garage, especially at night when the main lot was full. But Eleanor wasn't giving up. She started filing complaints about my visits with Ben, said I was disruptive and bringing contamination risks into the ward, used every bit of her administrative power to make our lives hell. She used her position to change hospital policies overnight, new rules about service animals that made it almost impossible to bring them in. Had to fill out 20 pages of forms for each visit, get them notarized, get special insurance that cost hundreds of dollars, have the animal examined by their approved vets only, who charged triple the normal rate. All while Ben was getting worse without his therapy visits. He'd stopped eating again, just stared at the ceiling all day. Other kids on the ward were suffering too. One little girl named Isabella used to light up when Peanut visited. She'd practice walking just so she could take him around the ward. Now she just stared at the wall, refusing her physical therapy. Her mom begged me to find a way around the new rules, but I was stuck in red tape. Every form I filled out got rejected for some tiny error. Every appeal got denied. Eleanor had built a wall of bureaucracy that was unaliving these kids' spirits as surely as the cancer was unaliving their bodies. I started digging into Eleanor's background, found out she'd been at the hospital for 15 years, worked her way up from filing clerk to senior administrator, had a reputation for being a stickler for rules, but nobody really liked her. The nurses avoided her in the hallways, ducking into patient rooms when they saw her coming. Even other admin staff kept their distance, eating lunch at their desks rather than risk encountering her in the break room. Then I discovered something interesting. Eleanor had been doctoring Margaret's medical records, adding notes about mysterious rashes that started weeks before the flea incident, trying to make it look like Margaret had been suffering from some unknown condition. I found this out from a nurse named Frances, who worked in records. She showed me the original files versus the edited ones during her night shift, whispering as we huddled over the documents. The handwriting was different. The dates didn't match up with shift schedules. Frances's hands shook as she pointed out the discrepancies, clearly terrified of getting caught helping me. Eleanor started befriending other parents in the ward. She'd show up during visiting hours with coffee and donuts, acting all sympathetic. Her voice would drop to this concerned whisper as she'd casually mention how I seemed unstable since Peanut died, how I'd been acting strange, muttering to myself in the hallways, staring at other therapy animals with this disturbing intensity. Complete lies, but some parents bought it, started requesting room changes to get their kids away from Ben, like my grief was contagious or something. One mom named Ruth actually confronted me about it, said Eleanor told her I'd threatened Margaret before she died, that I'd cornered her in the stairwell and made violent gestures. I explained what really happened with Peanut, but Ruth just looked at me with pity, like I was some crazy person who couldn't accept that my dog had gotten sick. Eleanor had poisoned the well so thoroughly that nobody wanted to hear my side. Ruth actually pulled her daughter away when Ben tried to wave at her through the window. My lawyer Lawrence suggested we look into Margaret's past, maybe find something that would shift the focus away from me. We hired a private investigator, this retired cop named Douglas, who specialized in background checks. What he found made my stomach turn. Margaret had worked at 3 other hospitals over the past decade. At each one, service animals had died under mysterious circumstances. The pattern was so clear, it made me physically sick. At Children's Hospital in Columbus, a therapy rabbit named Coco was found dead in a supply closet. The owner was told it must have eaten something toxic. At St. Mary's in Cleveland, 2 therapy dogs died within a month of each other, both from unknown causes. At Riverside Pediatric Center, a comfort cat named Whiskers had a sudden seizure during a visit. The pattern was clear, but nobody had connected the dots, because Margaret always moved on before suspicions could build, leaving grieving families in her wake. Douglas even found evidence that Margaret kept trophies. When they cleaned out her apartment, there were collars hidden in a shoebox in her closet, each one labeled with a date and location in her neat handwriting, like a serial killer keeping souvenirs. One collar still had fur attached, a few gray hairs from what must have been an older therapy dog. dog. But when Douglas tried to give this evidence to Lawrence at our scheduled meeting, Eleanor intercepted it. She was waiting in the parking lot when Douglas arrived, as if she'd been tipped off, claimed she needed to review any documents related to her sister as next of kin. Douglas, thinking it would help our case to be cooperative and show we had nothing to hide, handed over the copies to Lawrence's office. Eleanor took one look and said they were obviously forgeries, that I was desperately trying to frame her dead sister. She destroyed the documents right there in front of Douglas, tearing them into tiny pieces with this satisfied smirk. Then she filed a restraining order against me, said I was harassing her during her time of grief, that I'd been following her, making threatening phone calls she'd conveniently never recorded. The restraining order meant I couldn't go within 500 feet of her. Problem was, she made sure to be at the hospital during all of Ben's treatment times. I had to wait in the cafeteria while my son went through chemo alone. The nurses would text me updates, but it wasn't the same. Ben kept asking for me, and they had to lie, say I was stuck in traffic or parking the car. I could hear him crying for me sometimes, the sound carrying down the hallway like a knife to my heart. Then came the day of Ben's big surgery. They were removing a mass from his lung, a risky procedure that could go either way. I'd been preparing for weeks, planning to be there when he woke up, had even recorded videos on my phone for the nurses to play if he got scared. But Eleanor used her administrative access to have me banned from the hospital entirely that day. Said there had been security concerns about my behavior. Claimed I'd been seen carrying suspicious packages near the pediatric ward. I sat in my car in the parking lot for 6 hours, watching other parents come and go, living my nightmare. My phone battery died from checking for updates so frantically. The rain started around hour 3, matching my mood perfectly. Finally, a nurse named Ashley snuck out to find me. Ben had made it through but kept crying for me, calling my name even through the anesthesia fog. She was risking her job just telling me this, but she had kids of her own, understood what this was doing to us. She squeezed my hand through the car window before hurrying back inside. Lawrence, my lawyer, discovered something interesting while reviewing hospital finances. Eleanor had been embezzling from the Children's Ward Charity Fund, small amounts over years, but it added up to almost $50,000. She'd been using her position to approve fraudulent invoices, pay fake vendors that led back to her own accounts. Some of that money had gone to pay Margaret's legal fees from previous incidents at other hospitals. There were receipts for lawyers in 3 different states, all specializing in medical malpractice defense. We thought we finally had her, but Eleanor was smart. She'd covered her tracks well, and when internal audit started looking into it, she shifted blame onto a junior accountant named Logan. Poor guy had only been there 6 months, didn't even have access to the systems she'd used, but she fabricated emails, created a trail that led right to him. He got fired while she played the concerned administrator who'd discovered the theft. I saw Logan cleaning out his desk, tears streaming down his face, his whole career destroyed by Eleanor's lies. Eleanor's next move was pure evil. She tried to have Ben transferred to a different hospital 2 hours away, said our local facility couldn't provide adequate care anymore, that Ben needed specialists they didn't have. Complete lies, but she forged my signature on transfer documents, made it look like I'd requested the move. The forgery was good too. She must have practiced copying my handwriting. If it went through, I'd only be able to visit once a week due to the distance and my work schedule. I found out when a social worker showed up to discuss the transfer logistics. She had a whole folder of paperwork, bus schedules for the convenient public transportation to the new hospital. I told her I'd never signed anything, but Eleanor had anticipated this. She'd prepared a whole file documenting my erratic behavior and memory issues, suggested the stress was affecting my mental state. The social worker left looking concerned, said they'd need to evaluate my fitness as a parent. I saw her making notes as she walked away, probably about my agitation and paranoid accusations. That night I couldn't sleep, kept thinking about Ben alone in that hospital bed, probably wondering why I'd abandoned him, about all the other kids who'd lost their therapy animals because of Margaret, about Eleanor getting away with everything while painting me as the villain. The walls of my apartment felt like they were closing in, so I decided to take a different approach. I started recording everything, every interaction, every conversation. Oregon was a one-party consent state, so it was legal. Bought a small digital recorder and kept it in my pocket at all times. Waited for Eleanor to slip up, to say something that would expose her. Didn't take long. She was arrogant, thought she'd already won. She cornered me in the hospital cafeteria one day. I was eating a stale sandwich, trying to unalive time between Ben's treatments. She sat down across from me with this smug smile, didn't even ask permission, started going on about how she knew what I'd done to Margaret, how the fleas were too convenient, too targeted. But then she said something interesting. Said Margaret had been doing important work, cleaning up the hospital, that some families didn't deserve comfort when they were just prolonging the inevitable. Her exact words were burned into my memory. I kept my face face neutral, but inside I was screaming. She basically admitted she knew Margaret had been unaliving therapy animals, that she supported it, but she was careful with her words, nothing that would hold up in court without context. Still, I had it all on tape. Started building a file of my own, organizing everything chronologically, making backups of the recordings. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. A nurse named Salem who worked nights came to me with information. They'd been suspicious of Eleanor's frequent visits to the pediatric ward, especially during off hours. Eleanor had no medical training, no reason to be near the medication rooms, but Salem had seen her there multiple times, always when she thought nobody was watching, always wearing gloves, which was odd for an administrator. Salem had started documenting these visits in their own files, times, dates, what Eleanor was doing. They'd even taken some photos on their phone, blurry but clear enough to show Eleanor handling IV bags, messing with medication schedules. We compared notes and realized Eleanor had been visiting right before several kids had bad reactions to their meds, including Ben's reaction the night I'd brought Peanut to comfort him. The timeline matched perfectly. We took everything to Lawrence, but he said we needed more concrete evidence. Photos of someone in a medication room weren't enough to prove attempted unaliving, so Salem and I came up with a plan. They'd keep watching Eleanor while I worked on getting the security footage from those nights. The hospital was supposed to keep recordings for 90 days, but Eleanor had been mysteriously deleting files. Always small gaps in the footage, just enough to cover her tracks. I reached out to a tech guy named Jose who worked in IT. He owed me a favor from when I'd covered for him during a family emergency. Jose was able to recover some of the deleted footage from backup servers Eleanor didn't know about. What we found made my blood run cold. Clear video of Eleanor switching IV bags, adding something to medications. She'd been slowly poisoning kids to make it look like the therapy animals were spreading diseases. The precision of it, the calculated cruelty, made me physically ill. But before we could take this to the police, Eleanor made her final move. She must have sensed the walls closing in because she got desperate. Decided to go after Ben directly. Not with slow poison this time, but something immediate. Salem caught her injecting something into Ben's IV line during what should have been a routine check. Eleanor had waited until the shift change when she thought no one would notice. Salem told me later they didn't think, just reacted, screamed "stop" at the top of their lungs, and charged into the room. Eleanor spun around, tried to hide the syringe behind her back, but Salem tackled her like a linebacker, sending them both crashing into the monitor stand. The syringe went flying, hit the wall, and exploded its contents everywhere. The noise brought everyone running. 2 security guards, 3 nurses, even a janitor with his mop bucket. They found Eleanor on the floor with Salem sitting on her, still screaming for help. Eleanor kept saying Salem was crazy, that she was just checking on the patients, but the syringe was right there. The evidence splattered on the wall. Security held Eleanor while someone called the police. She switched tactics then, started crying about how I'd threatened her, how this was all a setup, said I must have paid Salem to frame her, but the head nurse had already called the pharmacy to check what was in that syringe. When they said potassium chloride, enough to cause instant cardiac arrest, even the security guards looked sick. The cops showed up fast, 2 uniforms first, then a detective. They bagged the syringe, took samples from the wall, photographed everything. Eleanor demanded a lawyer, wouldn't say another word, but her face when they put the handcuffs on, pure rage mixed with disbelief, like she couldn't understand how her perfect plan had failed. I was in the cafeteria when it happened, didn't know until a nurse came running to find me, said there'd been an incident but Ben was safe. I don't remember running, but suddenly I was in his room, checking him over like maybe I'd find some mark, some sign of how close we'd come. He was confused, kept asking why everyone was upset. I just held him and tried not to cry. The detective interviewed me for 3 hours that night. I gave him everything, the recordings, the recovered footage, all our documentation. He kept shaking his head as he went through it, said in 20 years he'd never seen anything like this. 2 sisters systematically torturing families with sick kids. He actually had to take a break halfway through, went outside to compose himself. They searched Eleanor's office that night and found more evidence. Hidden USB drives with copies of the blog posts, printed emails between her and Margaret planning their attacks, financial records showing the embezzlement, forged documents for the false transfer orders. She'd been sloppy in her desperation, left a trail a mile wide. They even found a draft email to another hospital warning them about my dangerous behavior, setting up her next move if the unaliving attempt had worked. The investigation expanded fast. FBI got involved because the blog crossed state lines. They found subscribers from all over the country, some who'd tried similar schemes in their own hospitals. It was like Eleanor and Margaret had inspired a whole network of people who got off on making sick families suffer. Made me physically ill reading about it. More families started coming forward. A couple from Detroit whose therapy cat died mysteriously, parents in Phoenix who'd been harassed by administrators after losing their service dog. The FBI said there were at least 12 hospitals involved, dozens of families affected, all because two twisted sisters decided suffering wasn't enough for people with sick kids. Eleanor's lawyer tried to claim mental illness, said she'd been manipulated by Margaret, but the prosecutors had those blog posts going back years, showing Eleanor was the one who started it. She'd recruited Margaret, taught her how to unalive animals without leaving evidence. The emails between them were like something out of a horror movie, discussing techniques and comparing results. During the trial, they brought in family after family to testify, parents sobbing as they described their children's devastation after losing their therapy animals, kids who'd stopped treatment, given up hope. One father from Indianapolis talked about how his daughter tried to hurt herself after her rabbit died, how she blamed herself for not protecting it. The jury was in tears. Eleanor sat through it all with this blank expression, like she was somewhere else entirely, only showed emotion when they played the recordings of her bragging about the scheme. Then she'd lean over to whisper frantically to her lawyer, probably still trying to find a way out, but there was no escape from what she'd done. The prosecutor laid out the whole timeline, showed how Eleanor and Margaret had picked the most vulnerable families, ones already hanging by a thread, how they'd document the breakdowns, rate them like it was some sick game. The blog posts were the worst part. Detailed descriptions of parents crying, kids refusing treatment, families falling apart, all written with this gleeful tone like they were proud of their work. They brought in experts to testify about the psychological damage, how losing a therapy animal could set back treatment by months, how some kids never recovered that trust. One doctor said it was a form of torture, targeting the only source of comfort these children had. The jury looked ready to convict right then and there. Eleanor's defense was pathetic. Her lawyer tried to argue the evidence had been obtained illegally, that I'd orchestrated everything to cover up Margaret's unaliving. But the security footage was clear, the syringe was real, and dozens of families were telling the same story. The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours, guilty on all counts. Attempted unaliving, fraud, conspiracy, cyber-stalking, the list went on. The judge gave her the maximum sentence for everything, 15 years just for trying to unalive Ben, plus more time for each additional charge. She'd be in her 70s before she got out, if she lived that long. When they read the verdict, Eleanor finally showed emotion. Not remorse, though, pure fury that she'd been caught. The hospital settled with every affected family without going to trial. They knew they couldn't win, not with all the evidence of negligent oversight. The CEO resigned immediately. Half the board followed. They brought in new leadership, people who actually cared about patient welfare. First thing they did was gut the whole administrative structure, start fresh. The settlement money was substantial, but I didn't want it for myself. Used it to start the Peanut Foundation, named after the dog who'd started it all. We provide free therapy animals to any family that needs one, no questions asked. Cover all the training, insurance, vet bills, everything. No family should have to fight for comfort while their kid is fighting for life. Ben helped design the logo, a golden retriever with angel wings. He insisted Peanut's photo be on every certificate we issue to new therapy animals, so they know they're part of something special, he said. Kid understood legacy better than most adults. He spent hours writing the mission statement, making sure it honored not just Peanut, but all the animals Margaret had unalived. We hired professional trainers who specialized in medical therapy animals, not just basic obedience, but specific skills, how to navigate IV lines, stay calm during seizures, provide deep pressure therapy during panic attacks. Each animal goes through 6 months of training before they're placed. We've got dogs, cats, rabbits, even a few guinea pigs for kids who need something smaller. The foundation grew faster than I expected. Donations poured in from families who'd heard the story, from hospital workers who'd seen the difference therapy animals made. We expanded to 3 states within the first year, set up training centers, hired coordinators to match animals with families, even got some corporate sponsors who covered operational costs, so every donation went directly to the animals. Ben became our unofficial ambassador. He'd visit hospitals with hope, telling kids about Peanut and how love can overcome anything. He had this way of explaining it that made sense to sick kids, how sometimes bad things happen, but we can make good things from them. How Peanut's love was so strong it changed laws and saved other animals. Kids would listen with wide eyes, then hug their own therapy animals a little tighter. Eleanor didn't last long in prison. Word spreads fast about people who hurt kids, even in women's facilities. 3 months in, she was attacked in the shower. Another inmate whose daughter had cancer, who'd heard what Eleanor tried to do. The injuries were severe, traumatic brain injury that left her unable to speak or move. She's still alive, technically, lying in the prison medical ward being fed through through tubes. Sometimes I think about visiting her, seeing if there's any recognition in her eyes, but I never do. She's living the nightmare she tried to create for others, helpless, dependent, forgotten. The other families and I prefer to focus on the positive, on building something good from the ashes. Eleanor is the past. The foundation is the future. We've placed over 100 animals now. Each one represents a child who won't suffer like Ben did, a family that won't face that loss. The training program has become a model for other organizations. Vet schools send students to learn our methods. We've published guidelines that hospitals across the country use to protect therapy animals and the families who depend on them. Ben's 10 now and already planning his future. Wants to be a veterinarian specializing in therapy animals, maybe run the foundation someday. He volunteers at the training center every weekend, working with the new animals. Has a gift for knowing which ones will be good with sick kids. Peanut tells me, he says sometimes, and I don't argue. Maybe he does. The pediatric ward is unrecognizable from those dark days. Therapy animals everywhere, kids laughing, parents smiling. They renamed it the Peanut Healing Center, put up a memorial wall with photos of all the animals Margaret unalived. But it's not sad. Each photo is surrounded by pictures of the kids they helped, the lives they touched. Proof that love leaves a mark that can't be erased. New families get told the story when they arrive. Not to scare them, but to show them they're safe now. That people fought to protect their right to comfort. That the system works now. Sometimes parents seek me out to say thanks, even though their kids never met Peanut. They understand what his sacrifice means, what all our animals' sacrifices mean. Hope is getting older now, but still visits the hospital weekly. She's trained 3 younger dogs who'll take over when she retires. Ben picked them out himself, said they had Peanut's spirit. Watching him work with those dogs, seeing his compassion and determination, I know we've won. Eleanor and Margaret tried to destroy that goodness, but only made it stronger. The foundation will outlive us all. We've set up trusts, established training protocols that will last generations. Somewhere right now, a sick kid is meeting their therapy animal for the first time, feeling that instant connection. Somewhere else, a family is finding hope in the darkest moment. That's Peanut's legacy, not the darkness that took him, but the light that followed. I visit his grave every week, usually with Ben and Hope. We tell him about the new animals, the kids they're helping. Fresh flowers appear regularly from families we've never met. The cemetery installed a bench nearby because so many people come to pay respects. Sometimes we find thank you notes tucked under rocks, messages from kids whose therapy animals gave them strength. Last week we placed a golden retriever named Sunny with a girl fighting the same cancer Ben had. When I delivered Sunny to the hospital, the girl's mom broke down crying, not from sadness, but relief. She'd been watching her daughter fade away, lose hope, but when Sunny climbed onto that bed and rested his head on her chest, the girl smiled, really smiled. Her mom grabbed my hand and whispered, "Thank you," over and over. That's what this is about. Not revenge or justice or even redemption. It's about making sure no family faces what we faced alone. About turning the worst thing that ever happened to us into something that helps others. Peanut died because 2 twisted people thought suffering wasn't enough for sick families, but his death exposed them, stopped them, and created something beautiful. Ben keeps a journal where he writes to Peanut, tells him about every animal we train, every child we help. He's planning to publish it someday. Wants other kids to know that heroes come in all forms, that sometimes a dog can change the world just by loving someone, that good people will always stand up to evil, no matter the cost. The Peanut Foundation isn't just about therapy animals anymore. It's about hope, about proving that love wins. Every wag, every purr, every gentle nuzzle carries Peanut's message. You're not alone. You're loved. You matter. Eleanor and Margaret thought they could destroy that. They were wrong. Love like that doesn't die. It multiplies, spreads, grows stronger with each life it touches. So that's the story. How one good dog exposed 2 monsters and changed everything. How a father's rage became a force for healing. How a little boy's love for his dog became a movement that helps thousands. It's messy and painful and beautiful all at once. But that's life, right? The worst things and the best things all tangled up together. Ben asked me once if I'd change anything if I could go back. I told him the truth. I'd save Peanut if I could. Stop Margaret before she hurt him. But then all those other animals would have died. All those families would have suffered. Sometimes the greatest good comes from the greatest loss. Peanut didn't die for nothing. He died so others could live, love, and heal. That's his legacy. That's what we built from the ashes. And that's why Eleanor rots in a hospital bed while we thrive. She chose cruelty. We chose love. Love won.
Wife had an accident. While she was in the hospital, I discovered her 6-month affair through her phone. I left her there, moved her things out and filed for divorce. Yesterday I got a call from the hospital that my wife, Andrea, 29F, met with an accident. In my 35-minute drive to the hospital, I just prayed Lord my wife be safe. I rushed to the ER to find her getting treated. I felt relieved to know she was out of danger and that it was not a life-threatening accident. The nurse handed me her phone and other belongings. I asked her if they knew how the accident happened. She said the complete details are not there yet, but they have informed the cops and they are investigating the car. The cops arrived and gave me a copy of their initial investigation. I was shocked to find that she was intoxicated, rammed into a parked car, and later derailed onto a sidewalk. Luckily she didn't drive to the other side and hit the road, otherwise, it would have been fatal. As the information about the accident unfolded, I grew suspicious. First, she was not supposed to be driving through the road where the accident happened. It was Wednesday afternoon and she was supposed to be at work and not driving 25 miles away from home. Second, why would she be drunk in the afternoon? The cops handed me the copy of the dashboard footage and it suggested that Andrea was playing loud music and rash driving. The alcohol was determined during her medical examination. I was investigated for an hour. The cops wanted to know if she was depressed or had a fight with me before she decided to get drunk and ram into a parked car. I had to show them the chats of yesterday and the day before. She texted me in the morning yesterday asking if I would come late or usual. I said usual, but if I think it's gonna be late, I'll inform. She ends it with a love you and heart emoticon. I had no phone call with her after that for the cops to think I was behind her depression or dilemma or whatever it was. They asked me what Andra was doing in the accident location, where she was returning from. I said I had no idea. Initially, they did not believe me, but after an hour-long investigation, they let me go. They had no reason to suspect me. I was then allowed to meet Andrea. I enter her cabin and cuddle her. She was partly conscious. The first thing she asked me, "Where is my phone?" I was shocked. She was still under local anesthesia, in pain, but all she cared about was her phone. I lied that it was with the hospital authorities. She seemed relieved. My mind was already fogged with the investigation report, and now her weird question made me even more suspicious. There were so many questions in my mind, but I decided to park it until she recovers. I cuddled her to sleep. Her behavior sparked curiosity in me. I pulled out her phone from her bag, which the nurse had handed over to me. It was discharged. I used my power backup to charge it. As soon as I switched it on, it started buzzing with several notifications. I put it on silence mode. All the buzz subsided in a minute, but there was a continuous notification popping up from one chat. I couldn't read the message from the locked screen. Then there was a call from someone saved as Corner House. This is a small eatery at the corner of our block from where we regularly order takeaways and home delivery, but why was she getting a call from that restaurant so late at night? I kept staring at the screen, contemplating whether to respond or not. There were some 5 back-to-back calls from that number with an occasional chat notification. I'm not an insecure person who goes around snooping into my wife's personal space, but the circumstantial evidence forced me to forget my morals. I unlocked her phone using her fingerprints. She was in deep sleep under medication, and I spent the night sitting by her bed and uncovering my failed marriage. As I suspected, the chat notifications were from the same contact that she had saved as Corner House. Evidently, she had saved someone else's number with that restaurant name to safeguard herself if I ever happened to see the call or chat notification. If we were at home and I saw a call coming from Corner House, I would have suspected nothing. It came out that Andrea had been cheating on me for over 6 months or more. I checked AP's number on my phone, but he was not on my contact list. I looked it up on a caller app and found his name to be Kevin. I know no one with such a name. It's difficult to determine when it actually started. The chat history was backed up until 6 months back, so I'm guessing it is at least 6 months old, if not more. The chats were outrageous and demeaning to me. It was disheartening to read how she was describing her desires for AP while mocking my abilities in bed. She was telling him how I last for no more than a blink and she has to fake her orgasm to keep me happy. They have been meeting every week and sometimes twice a week at their secret hideout. She met with an accident when she was returning from her fucking session, and that explains why she was asking about her phone, and that's why she was drunk. Knowing Andrea, I understood that they had sex because she likes to have it when drunk. But I thought it was only with me, but there she is, going around fucking men in a drunken state. Reading their chats made me throw up. She was sexting him all the time, in the middle of the night, during her work hours, and even when she was out with me. The last time they sexted was when we were watching a movie, the day before. I remember clearly she was cuddling me and we kissed and made out. I feel so gross to think that she was imagining me to be him all this while. There was no fucking way I could have suspected that she was up to this. We had regular date nights, went on trips, and talked to sleep. Sex was twice a week. Not sure if this is inadequate or okay or how many times others do it. Haven't gone around surveying what others do. It hurts me to think that I was not able to keep her satisfied. Had she told me this, I might have figured out a solution. She never expressed that she wanted more or something else. I thought we were close enough to be brutal honest with each other, but guess we were not. I snooped into her social media account but didn't find AP added there. Their only mode of communication was through chats and calls. How do I find him? Who the heck is this guy who has been satisfying my darling wife? I've been up the whole night. Now I feel dizzy, but the rage in me is not letting me sleep. I want to call AP to the hospital and beat the shit out of him. I don't know what I'm gonna do now. Maybe just need to head out of here. Update 1. You know what? I left that whore at the hospital, threw away her phone, packed her belongings, and dumped it outside my house. I also did a couple of other things. I'll come to it eventually. I left the hospital room and went home, but I was feeling very uneasy. I wanted to do something about my pain. I was racing inside the house thinking what to do while Andrea's phone was continuously buzzing with AP's calls and texts. That son of a bitch was concerned that she wasn't replying. I decided to fix the problem first. I opened the phone and started chatting with him as Andrea. Pasting the text conversation here. Read corner house as AP. Me, hey, don't call/text me. I don't want to be with you anymore. Corner house, wait? Why? Corner house, what happened? Are you mad at me for something? Corner house, are you mad that I didn't stay longer? I promise next time we'll spend the day together. Corner house, why ain't you replying? Okay, talk to me first. We can sort this out. Me, I'm never gonna meet you and stop texting me. Corner house, can we meet today and discuss this? Corner house, how about I pick you up from work? I'll tell Connie I'm working overtime. Corner house, okay, are you upset because my divorce got delayed? Trust me, I'm gonna shove the paper to Connie this month. Me, no. Don't do that. I don't enjoy sex with you anymore. You are no more than just a toy for me. Your cock excites me no more. I found another cute guy who lasts longer than you. Corner house, what? You're messing up with me, don't you? Me, I'm not. I'm going out for a date with him tonight. Corner house, don't do this. You know I love you. Me, one more message and I'm gonna tell your wife everything. Corner house, you slut. The beeping stopped after that. Then I accessed her work email on her phone and sent a resignation letter to her manager, asking for an immediate release. He replied asking for a reason. I responded that I, Andrea, am pissed off with the toxic work culture, people there are shit and the manager is a womanizer finding opportunities to grab booties. I also wrote that if he doesn't approve my resignation, I'm gonna expose all the truth to the management. The resignation was approved within minutes. Glad, I was a good listener. Listening to Andrea's work BS actually helped me today. I felt a small victory. So, now she is jobless and single. I have nothing to do with it. She quit her job and dumped her lover. Poor girl. I took her credit card and swiped off all the little money she had. I even burnt all her ID cards, passport, and bank documents and didn't leave a trace of it. I flushed the ashes. If she has to find it, she needs to scavenge the gutter and put it back. One victory after another. It would take her months if not years to get a copy of these documents from the government authorities. She would be on cast for ATL 2 months. She can't go running to government offices to get these documents even if she finds out they are missing. She's gonna face the first blow today when she wakes up from her slumber sleep of anesthesia. I'm gone from the hospital. She doesn't have her phone. No one in her family or friends knows that she's in hospital. She doesn't have her insurance details with her. I'm not saying she would be stuck at the hospital for ages. No, but she would have to struggle for every bit of it. She has no card/money to pay the hospital bills. Even if she manages to contact her insurance provider, she has no ID with her. She might take the authorities' help to call her parents or friends, but that's not gonna be easy. Her parents live 5 hours apart. Let's see how her friends are gonna help. After having a satisfactory smile pulling this off, I packed her clothes, accessories, and other belongings and kept them outside the house. While I was in the middle of this, I got a call from the hospital. The doctor wanted me there to discuss the discharge formalities. I asked when are gonna discharge her. They said tomorrow. I said I'd be there tomorrow, right now stuck with other stuff. They said it would delay the process and they might keep her admitted for another day. I said sure, we can handle 1 extra day's charge. Good for her. After a couple of hours, I again got a call from the hospital. This time it was Andrea asking me to come. I said, sure baby, I came home for a shower. We'll be there in an hour. Then, I called up the hospital authorities, strictly instructing them not to let Andrea call anyone. My fragile little sweetheart needs rest. They assured they would oblige and would inform the duty nurse about it. Bam. Throughout the day, I got 4 calls from the duty nurse that Andrea was asking me to visit her and that she was getting restless. Initially, I thought of ghosting them or telling them I'm not gonna come, but that would have made her switch to other people for help. So instead of that, I kept buying time and left her hanging. Next, I'm gonna change my lock so that she's blocked from my house. I'm also gonna meet my lawyer tomorrow and discuss my odds of getting rid of her without paying a penny. But that's it until now. Update 2. Whoa. What a whirlwind it has been. I messed up with the hospital authorities for 2 days before ghosting them. They called me to clear the discharge formalities and take her home, and I kept borrowing time that I was out of town. Andrea got suspicious of my actions. Her phone was missing. I had told her that it was with the nurse, but the nurse would have informed her by now that it was with me. She would have added up the math and understood that I had discovered the truth. The other reason was that I had never neglected her. She knew that if not for any major reason, I could not abandon her in this state when she was in hospital recovering from an accident. I played around for 2 days before ghosting them. But before that, I had collected all the evidence of Andrea's cheating from her phone and kept my lawyer in confidence. This was to safeguard myself if the hospital got the cops involved. Andrea called up her parents when she realized that things have screwed up. Her parents arrived at my door, yelling at me that I abandoned her daughter to die at the hospital and informed no one about it. I let them vent out before I showed them the texts where their daughter was flaunting her sexuality with another man and watched them mellow down. They were like, "Oh, we are sorry for what she has done, but this is not the time for revenge. She needs you now. You took a holy vow that you would take care of your wife in sickness." What? Didn't she take a vow too that she would not seek any other men apart from me? What happened to her vow? Right, she has shoved it on her ass, so I'm gonna do the same. Vows my $1. They got infuriated by my words and stood up to leave, threatening to drag me to the court. I said, "On your way, take her thrash away from here. My house has no place for her and her filthy stuff." They cursed me and took her belongings with them. I'm guessing they have taken Andrea with them until she recovers. As per the latest update by my lawyer, the divorce paper will reach her in a week. We are going to use her infidelity to get rid of her. Using her chat conversation, my lawyer has also made a case that she was plotting with AP to divorce and rip me off financially, and I did everything to safeguard myself and not to harm her. So far, so good. Waiting for the divorce papers to be served. Update 3. So, the divorce papers reach her and she freaks out. She's still immobile, wrapped in a cast. She sent me hundreds of voicemails, some with threats, some with curses, and some with requests for a meeting. I ignored all of it. Then she sent a long threatening email that she's gonna sue me for destroying her IDs, emptying her credit card, and forging her resignation at work. I replied, "Sure, go ahead if you have the money and time to fight the case. It's gonna take ages for her to prove that I had done all this what she was saying. Remember, you don't have a job or money? If you drag me to court, I am gonna press a counter case of humiliation and infidelity, and I have evidence of these charges. Better suck it up and sign the divorce papers and get done with it." The threats and pleading stopped, but she was not signing the papers either. She emailed my lawyer that she needs a meeting before deciding on her move. My lawyer suggested I meet her but asked me to lay some ground rules. Meeting at a public place, no promises, no turbulence, and no physical contact, hugging or whatsoever. Also, our conversation would be recorded so that she doesn't frame me falsely. If needed, my lawyer would accompany me or would be on a call with me. I relayed the instructions to her and she agreed. My lawyer also suggested I try and convince her for out of the court settlement to save money and time. I went there alone. Lawyer asked me to call him if needed. I set the recorder and sat there waiting for her to take the lead. She started off by saying, "You played smart, you did everything to destroy me and you were successful too. I have no job, no money, and yeah, no man, he left me." I asked her, "So you were angry because I chased off your lover?" She said, "No, he was a loser and I was gonna get rid of him anyways." Her nonchalant response made me crack up. I busted out in laughter and she joined me in this. It took me to our pre-dating days when we used to discuss the men who would hit on her and would laugh at their pickup lines. Joke's on me, I got picked up at the end and became a subject of laughter. She said, "Why are you doing this to me?" with tears in her eyes. I asked why she cheated on me when we had everything so beautiful. She had no answer. She said it was just for fun and it didn't mean anything. She was just fooling around with AP and called him a simp man. I said, "Well, I guess I'm a simp for sitting here with you and talking to you after you went sleeping with another man behind my back." She said, "Oh, come on, let's move on from this." I said, "I am being civil with you, but this doesn't mean I'm gonna have you back in my life. I'm never gonna forgive you. You hurt me and it was a sheer betrayal. You mocked me and discussed our sex life with your AP. You even said that my small dick went halfway into you and I didn't satisfy you." Tears welled up in my eyes as I said this. This was nothing short of a humiliation for me. She held my hands, cried, and apologized. I shrugged off her hands and yelled, "No touching, stay away from me." She pulled back herself. I wiped my face and said that even if I forgive her, I cannot stop thinking that she was taking our sex life outside our house and mocking me. Whenever I would kiss her or have sex with her, I would always think I'm not enough. Not only her, now I don't think I would ever be confident with any other woman. I would always think, what if she thinks the same as Andrea? What if I'm really not enough? She was again crying and said, "I didn't mean any of those things I said to AP. I said it only to take him in confidence. You are enough. You kept me happy. I was a fool to get distracted and cheat on you, but I promise, I never loved AP but you. I never thought of leaving you. Please, trust me," I said. "Trust you? Never." She pestered me, assuring that she would be loyal and would never lay her eyes on anyone but me. I said, "Didn't you take this vow at the altar yet you slept with another man?" She was left with no choice but to sign the papers. She said okay and pulled out the papers from her bag and signed them with shivering hands. She looked at me with teary eyes while handing over the papers. I was also in tears. All my rage was now flowing out as pain. Everything is over now. We have known each other for more than a decade. To ease the situation, I asked, so would you be running back to AP now? She laughed and said, no, he doesn't want me anymore. He doesn't want to listen that it was you. He said he's not gonna cheat on his wife for a flaky woman. Ops, too bad. With pain and remorse, she said, but you be happy, you got your revenge, you ripped me off everything. I lost everything, guess I deserve it. We left after that. No hugs, no goodbyes. I just stood up and left. While driving back home, I was contemplating my actions. Did I go too far? Was I wrong in doing what I did? If not, then why don't I feel content after pulling off my revenge so precisely? I don't know. It's too soon to say anything. Need to soak the reality that I'm divorced now. Gosh. I was a happily married man until a few months back and now I'm divorced. Married over 20 years before finding my wife's steamy messages and makeout sessions with another man. Me, 52M, WW, 50F, together for 22 years, married 20. 3 kids, 2 young adults, 1 7-yo. 5 years ago the WW had a late life epiphany. Sex was good and enjoyable. We went from 1 to 2 times a month to daily and sometimes if time and responsibilities allowed, twice in the same day. The activities included seductive bears sent to my phone or email and cutesy stuff, hearts and smileys reminiscent of our earlier days in the relationship before kids. Somewhere in this time, December-January 2018 talks about spicing up the bedroom by bringing another person in the mix. First red flag, it was a guy friend from our cohort that the WW suggested. Noped it hard with the simple reason of not my cup of tea to be bare in the same bed with another guy and my spouse. It got dropped then, but articles about poly and open relationships were being dropped on my inbox or links on the phone. I would read them, and vary from non-committal to not interested. A week before Thanksgiving 2018, we're out on a date and the talk about including a third comes up. I ask if this hypothetical third has a name. It's a close friend with whom we spend a lot of time together etc. And with whom the WW has spoken about this idea with already. Pay for the drinks, get in the car and proceed to flip my lid. 1. I never agreed to this. 2. For any such conversation I should have been present and not told after it was decided. 3. F no. Literally. The holidays sucked for all but it was one of the best weight loss programs for all adults in the house. Around February 2019 we get our crap together to talk it through. She's repentant and remorseful, admits poor judgment and understands why I'm not okay about the deceit, as well as the whole idea. She got it. Love-making life took a hit, we managed to find a new pace. At least once a week but the spark and lust were subdued. Earlier this year, apparent that I had a difficult relationship passed unexpectedly. I was there for a planned 4 days, stayed for 45 and a funeral. My baggage started resurfacing, especially some of the treatments that I experienced of being the safe one, the second choice. As I'm starting to deal with this crap milkshake of the soul, WW starts to be withdrawn, always on electronics, limited conversation and only about the basics. F. I'm at a place to deal with my loss and now this. Okay. I get on her machine after midnight when the house is all quiet and Therese nothing in recent email or on FB and on phone messages. There's activity but nothing that points to coded or otherwise hidden messages. I check the time frames of 2017 to 2018. Bingo. I find sent emails to the friend from her with the same spicy pictures I was getting at the same time. FB Messenger for the same period is full of good mornings, smiley faces, hearts and flirting between them, video chats from 5 to 15 minutes. WW was starting a business and friend would stop by for coffee or lunch daily as he could. At the time he was there to help and advice. Flip of lid, part 2. The idiot awakens got the 20k volts coursing through me all night. Could not sleep, sit. Just paced. Around 6 a.m., WW wakes and asks what's wrong. I open the laptop lid and show her the highlighted emails with her breast pics to the friend's email. No inbox, just sent files. I asked how would she react if she found out I had pictures of a bare woman on my machine and that they were of a time period covering at least 10 months prior to what I said was a silly mistake? I pointed out that she did lie, she did have at least an emotional affair with the now verified AP and it was deliberate. Trust was lost and any statement from her at this point would be suspect to its truth. The first apologies of the WW ended in the trash can as she started to vomit. I asked why she did not tell me of this 4 years ago. We would have dealt with this already. I told her I'm taking the day to think about it and sharing because it can happen to anyone. None of us are special. And here I thought it would never happen to me. Update 1. Today is day of firsts. The outpouring of support and trauma shared is staggering. I find myself glad and sorry that I'm not alone in my experiences. Thank you to all for the advice, comments and suggestions from readings to step-by-step playthroughs. I have replied to individuals but it's worth updating all and clarifying some points before the update. She did have a miscarriage that was a bloody affair that we rushed to the ER for, with her soaked in her own blood. It was verified as such by the trauma staff and Obgyn at the hospital. It was early first trimester. No way to tell who the father was. This was early 2018. Got snipped shortly after. Shady life was still on the red-hot stage of things. I have heard from several of you that the DNA test route is a good idea. It's yet another truth that has been challenged today. Affair partner is single, has been divorced for at least as long as we were married. Racially we're European stock, he's mostly African American and Native American. He's very well spoken, charming and educated. WS was engaged in minority community outreach and education for years, as was AP. WS' nascent business was with an actual storefront. Sure, there were spaces that two adults could be intimate in. If Teresa will Teresa way. AP runs his own consultancy and makes his own hours. Flexible schedule and has small business experience, offered to help with the startup and was an advisor. Again, legitimate reasons to be there plus time. Business was started in the fall of 2015, storefront opened in winter of 2016. Closed shop spring of 2019. Good idea, bad execution. In retrospect, WS had her mind and focus elsewhere. And yes, the more I reread this text, the more of a calamity this man was for us. After spending the day in disbelief, anger and errand voltage running through me, I came home. My insides are playing death metal while outwardly I whistle easy listening tunes. WS is on the couch, collapsed in on herself. She tried to get up to greet me and just I pointed my hands at her. She sits. I grab the chair as far from the couch as I can. I inform her that I'm with one foot out the door. I will decide which direction I move in the relationship based on what she does next. I tell her that since she's the mother of the kids, and out of respect for our time together, I will endeavor to keep nastiness on my part to a minimum. I remind her it's more fair than she deserves and it's because of my self-respect, not her actions. Because of her effed up upbringing and the abandonment she experienced, I tell her not to be afraid of me disappearing. I tell her that if leave, she will be explicitly told. I also let her know that her presence in the house is at my discretion at this point. She has luggage and can be told to leave if at any point she disrespects me or tries to lie. We discuss how to tell the kids. She wants to tell them it's the fight from 2018. I remind her how one of the teens stopped speaking to her and how she would be a pariah once again in house. She starts crying and I remind her she did this. I will talk to the kids with her there. She shook her head and cried. In return, to begin with, start with the no contact letter to AP. Start the timeline on paper. Anything not true, we're done right there. A list of passwords to accounts, bank and plastic records. She gets the couch. I will let her know what next. Before I leave the room I asked her who is she? She has become a stranger. Update 2, while going through WS phone, I found her text file with all her passwords to her accounts. Facebook, email accounts, Apple account, etc. So one more piece of intel. I have not been this angry, hurt and confused in my adult life. I found all the things that I held as hard truths to be null. It's surreal having the person with whom you build a life with being asked to write a no contact letter to her AP. It's even more surreal for the WS to not argue when I've been asking her to do things. I asked her to also provide me with the affair timeline. Based on what she wrote I would decide on my next steps. This all the morning after. I got myself to work and got sorted there with management about time off. My manager was understanding and gave me no problems. I started going through WS social media chats with AP and started seeing a pattern of flirting and daily conversations from Jan 18 to almost June 19th. After that there were more conversations between them, but mostly about a project that the two of them have been engaged for a while. There were 2 dates in the text lineup, on March 19th and one on April 19th. The first was flirting between them where AP was commenting about WS lips, and how he loves kissing her. She replied back with heart emojis and how she could not wait to see him in the morning. This was during the time that I was away on a trip with the 2 younger kids visiting family. Screenshot number 1. The second exchange was WS telling AP that she's sorry for hurting his feelings but they need to keep it just to the project. Screenshot number 2. Send both screenshots to WS via text and ask that she include those in the timeline. She starts explaining over text that they're not what they seem. I text her to just put the explanation in the timeline. Finish a couple tasks at work and head home. WS is sitting on the couch reading a book. I ask her how the timeline is coming along. She looks up and says she will work on it when she has time in the evening. She looked like she was crying but is putting on a brave face. I'm irritated by this. I can't interpret her stance. It could be I don't want to do this, it's not important, or can't face it, or you're not the one on charge. This is not a game. Send a text to my friend, letting her know that I need an exit and shelter in place. Got confirmation and ETA. Grab my laptop, chargers, cables, etc., toiletries and bug out bag. Get the text from friend that says ETA is 2 minutes as I asked. Walk into the room with WS and ask when the timeline will be done. She says she's going to work on it that evening. I let her know that she can concentrate better without me there and that I will be back home when the timeline is complete. And exit stage right. She's left mouth agape as I walk out. I had a timeline in my email inbox in 40 minutes. On the very first of the versions, half of the timeline were apologies, excuses and reasons that made no sense. It took several days of edits and pointing the inconsistencies in the narrative. I wanted to drive home the time this was hidden, so I sent her a document that I asked her to fill out because of her jumping around in her story. It was really a list of all the months from September of 17 to June of 22. She started her timeline from September of 17 with the first set of spicy pics she sent me, and continued on from there, with focus after the blowout we had, when she announced her desire to open the marriage up and have an affair with the AP. She felt ashamed and sorry for her actions in November 18th and did not speak to AP until after the holidays. Sometime in January 18th, while we were working towards reconciliation, she started speaking with him again and he was supportive of her and understood where she stood. He asked her if she would like to drop out of their project and she said no, as it was very important to her as a project in general. During that time, they continued to spend time together but would no longer tell me about it. When I had noticed this, I had asked AP why he was no longer around as much, not that I minded, and he said that he was spending more time with his son who was now staying with him. In providing support for their soft breakup that was our fight and almost breakup in November 18th with WS. They got closer, rekindled and continued with their EA. The highlight was the text of the screenshot I caught, where the two of them apparently shared an intimate kiss for the first time, sometime on March 19th. After that they continued having encounters when they could, that were mostly making out and some petting over the clothing. WS apparently was feeling guilt and shame and broke it off with what was the aftermath in the conversation that got caught on April 19th in text. When I had a cohesive timeline, I sent it to the AP and asked him what he had to say for himself. He responded with how sorry he was and that he never should have engaged in that relationship and how sorry he was. He would tell me anything else, but I needed to find out what happened. Told him that WS and I were talking about a sexual misconduct complaint against him. Truth was we had never talked about it, but I knew the organization he worked for and the project the two of them were involved in and how damaging any such publicity would be. He sang like a canary and gave the WS up without a fight. Right under the bus. He admitted that she approached him, that he knew my reservations but thought I could be open-minded. WS was to him a friend who truly understood the social issues of his life and felt he could speak to her with an open heart because she understood him. Yeah, I know. I had the same reaction when I read that. He was sorry for the damage and was ashamed for lying and keeping it a secret. I called him a snake in the grass and how I was not there to give him absolution. From their timelines, I gathered that they were on and off and confused as to when it was just an EA, or just working on a project. And even the PA parts were strained, with him leading most of the time and her being active at first then passive towards the end. He said he was sorry. I told him to keep the F away from us, at least while I'm in the picture. Getting enough information between WS and AP, I think I got a pretty good idea of the truth to what happened. It was an emotional affair that got started from the WS attraction to AP. His role in pursuing and in some cases manipulating the WS. The lying that they both engaged during the time it was supposedly over. Lies, betrayal and more lies. Had the talk with a couple of lawyers who pretty much said the same things. The most brutally honest one was the last one I saw, who up front told me that the post-nuptial agreement I was looking for would not make sense in the NE of the US, because of how long we had been together. There would be no alimony but the support that I would have to be would be more than half my paycheck. To his recommendation, it was not the worst he had seen, so he would rather we spend the money on counseling versus legal fees. Either way, if we were to divorce, the process would cost as much as the post-nup, so not a win there either. The night before my return home, got quite drunk with my friend at her house, where 3 bottles of wine died for our sins and my body gently reminded me that I'm 52 not 25. She's one of my best friends, even though attractive as hell, never made a move as I was always involved. She's also good for the ego and took care of me emotionally and physically when I could not eat. Nothing like a Valkyrie telling you to eat or else. During my time away from home, I kept in touch with the kids and offered to listen to anything they had to say. 7 years old was the hardest to speak with, as they cannot understand but know something is wrong. The day before my return home, visited over the house and had the conversation with the WS. I set what I expect on the table. 1. She's to get a job. Enough living on my dime and saving the world one social program at a time. There will be no reconciliation for a year. 2. During this time we're in counseling, individual and couple, so I can get answers as to why. Also because no matter what, we're tied together because of the kids and need to deal with each other. 3. There will be no physical contact. Bought a bunk bed for the 7-year-old room so she can move in, and I get the bedroom. Meanwhile I get the couch, which is fine. 4. Because of all this she has caused me to question what relationships are. Not sure if this relationship is I want or if WS is the right person for me anymore. I will date casually during this year if I choose. If she decides to do the same, we go straight to separation, amicably. 5. I will conduct myself with dignity and compassion. I could go scorched earth but will not due to the damage it will cause the kids. She's now a secondary priority. Kids are my first and will remain so. I had a full confession out of both AP and WS, and even though Therese still fog and shame, I know enough of what happened. Even if I don't know all the truth, I know enough to feel I'm right in my decisions. I also know that I will check the color if WS says the sky is blue for a long time to come. I made edits to this doc after falling asleep on it out of exhaustion. To all of you, thank you for support, wisdom, perspective and reaching out. Stay strong all of you. Update 3, the part of finding out more of what happened is how you now see the red flags you ignored in the past. The ride of the skiff and the tsunami continues. AP has been working on WS since 2014. Found out that this is his hobby. He has moved around different groups of people with the community and couples seem to combust into divorce. Also found out he's ex-military, with a specialty in counterintelligence. All these years and we never knew this. It was an interesting night at the pub. His tactics are always slow, methodical, under the radar, infiltrate, subvert, divide and spoil. The friend of a friend who lived it, was in tears and his WS affair with the same AP was in 2010. I found out the following over the last month, how he moved in on the WS by spending time and becoming her best friend, confidant, adventure partner and eventual affair partner. How he exploited character weaknesses and stresses between WS and myself as we started and closed a business and all that goes with it to make his move on her. How he added to the strife from this affair at the time, and how it led to spousal alienation. The isolation of the WS from the teens which lead to our teens rebelling and an awkward age becoming more difficult as well as the poison of a serious secret between two people just festering. As expected by all, the emotional affair was also physical. All but intercourse by the time WS approached me with her talk of opening up the relationship as a way to legitimize what they were already doing, and taking it to the next level. I'm sure that at some point in the future I will receive private pictures from an unknown account with the immortalizing of some of their acts together. AP had plans for the WS too. Getting married, meeting his swinger friends etc. Maybe she felt sorry for me, maybe she snapped out of the haze, maybe that was a unicorn in a meadow full of rainbows when she broke it after my crap fit. The affair petered out soon after our November 18th with some emotional blackmail from the AP towards the WS, and her surprisingly holding her ground. But they both acted as all was well, till the pandemic at which point she broke all contact. Both lied back then. He lied a month ago during D-Day when I confronted him, keeping up the story. It has taken me a month of carrot and stick to get truth out of WS, or most of it and it sucks. Not sure I want the whole truth. I had my first anxiety attack the night she told me all of what she is willing to tell me. I'm not sure if reconciliation is possible, but need to go through the motions as I figure out how to prepare before the next time happens and get the F out of this. I'm in the process of rebuilding my damaged relationship with the older kids and spending more time with the youngest. I'm waiting on the paternity test to come back. Thank you all for the suggestion, but even if the kids are not mine, I'm not trusting them around WS, based on the way she treated them during and even after the affair. Either way, the young adults are more pissed at WS than I am, and would have voted WS off the island already. The good thing is her BS is now over, so I can actually talk to them again and not get sabotaged at every word. They see through her BS as well. I have set a reconciliation date of next Father's Day. I'm keeping my word as I need to rebuild mine and my kids' world into a stable one and not the crap show it was been. I'm doing okay for the most part, feel I dodged a bullet back then. It could have been one of those cases where no matter what I did, I would be the bad guy or even who knows, even dead or in jail. WS swears up and down that it was a mistake and how horrible she is and how she will spend the rest of her life making it up to me. I have the timeline and letter from her stating that during the time we've been married she had an affair, that I know of. And that I never abused her or the kids in any way. Won't mean much but at least is more proof than I said, she said. I have given sealed copies of the letter to my childhood friend who has proven his trust over the years, plus one with my legal docs. Once WS lands the job, we're getting a post-nuptial. It sucked, and will do so for a bit. But I now know why things were the way they were, and that I need to work to get out of this tunnel to live my remaining years in peace and happiness. Cheers to all, and once again, thank you all for the support, advice and wisdom you've shared. Update 4, it's been over 7 months since D-Day. It's been a rough time with the expected up and downs. The problem with turbulence is that it turns you around and you need to work hard to stay true to a course. This is where methods such as Grey Rock or 180 help. Or you can let it turn you where it may. End of the day it's all about choices. I'm still reading the subreddit and still use it as a way to both validate or understand some aspect better. Occasionally I find I'm dead wrong. It happens. I have understood each one of us to be different and although the overall process seems to follow similar patterns, the process is not the same for all. Ironically we're all unique in our common woes. My takeaways from the process so far have been that the cheating took away my agency, my right to make choices for myself. I did not agree to give up my agency to WS or to AP. Because of that whatever relationship I had with WS is gone, dead, Christmas tree on the curb waiting for pickup. In my case, WS is full of genuine remorse and willing to put the work into a new relationship with me. That or I have an Oscar-worthy performance in the house. There's also some truths that have come up since D-Day that changed the surprise of why this happened, to how it happened. When the right person able to exploit a situation came along. AP is a serial cheater in our case. He targets married women in long-term relationships and exploits relationship weaknesses. This was verified right away. He was able to create the illusion that WS was engaged in a fun activity no worse than driving above the speed limit or having that extra donut in the office. WS was able to see, after the fog lifted, that what was offered by AP and what she had in our old relationship differed in quality and decided to hide the affair and go through the motions of denial and distancing from the events. Had AP not been a predator, or WS not aware enough of it, a different outcome and talking about co-parenting and asset division and all the options and choices with that path and course of actions would be posted instead. A different bearing on the compass. Still an option though. WS made choices though. Choices I disagreed with. Choices that were hurtful and betrayed 2 decades of common life. Choices that negated me as a partner. There were also reasons that AP could exploit WS and her relationship with me and our marriage. We had grown complacent in our old relationship. We had a calcified communication process where neither of us would say what was wanted or needed to be said. We would rather avoid conflict than speak freely. We both believed that we cared for, loved each other as habit rather than actual engagement of feeling. WS's EA and eventual PA were an extreme case to find out all of this though. Do not recommend. We knew that something was wrong for a long time between us. We were unsure of the normalcy or abnormality of what it was. Lost honest communication with each other created a chasm. I was just as responsible for this as WS. But my choices were different. Maybe I was lucky that the right or wrong person did not come my way with the right look and needs. It could be me here talking about being a wayward myself. So here we are in a process of deciding if a new relationship is possible. Not reconciling the old. I cannot go back to who I was in that relationship, nor do I want who WS was. We're talking again. Honestly, freely and openly discussing difficult subjects. MC has helped with some communication patterns and ground rules. I see with personal demons and those dark corners of the mind. The questions asked by a dear friend were, if WS were to somehow disappear from life, freak accident, black hole, alien abduction, how would I feel about her? I figured out for myself that I did not hate WS. Hurt and upset, yes. But not hate. Still saw her as human with deep flaws. Even that I had care and compassion for her. Second question, could I live with those flaws? My answer after a lot of thinking has been, I'm flawed. I cannot live with my own flaws and shortcomings. How am I expecting someone else to work on themselves when I need to work on me? So, even though legally still married, I find myself in a place of finding who I am, changing what I don't like or encouraging what I like within me. WS is also finally putting the work that has been needed for her to deal with trauma and PTSD from her past. She's also working on herself and is realizing that this is new. The old is gone and not going back to it. Everything is tentative. Any decisions are to go through discussion, to stay or leave, and the expectation is each party is to explain until the other party understands. There is no ownership or theft or subversion of agency. Lots of work to do, and final conversation is on Father's Day of 2023, a year from when I set my conditions. Thank you all who have been in touch with your support and comments. It has been a good boost when morale was low. We each have the strength to do what is needed. But we're all here to remind each other of that. The end goal is to find our happiness in the end, whatever that means for each of us. Godspeed to all. Before I begin the story, just letting you know that there is Op's son's response to the post in the middle of the story which explains the situation a lot, so please do watch the whole story to get the idea of what Op did was truly wrong. Ruined my perfect family after my husband caught me cheating with my boss and went to prison for assault. Now 7 years later he's out, while I'm all alone and my kids hate me. I'm a selfish person. At least that is what I say to myself repeatedly almost every night when I hear the silence in my home. My children aren't here. My ex-husband hates me with good reason. My immediate family is divided and I never stopped hating myself for what I did. My selfish act happened in 2015. I just turned 39 and I admit I took my ex-husband for granted. My ex always told me that I was beautiful on a daily basis, always wanted to have sex, always took care of me, and treated me like his equal. He never treated me like a queen or a princess. I was his partner. We'd been married for 20 years by that time. High school sweethearts, each other's one and only, and it felt right. My family loved him, my brother looked up to him, and my ex helped him through a lot of tough situations. My ex was the one people called when they were in trouble and he helped them. He was a good man. Through the years, I gave him 2 headstrong boys. At the time of this they were 18, 16, and twin princesses, 13. I gained weight and felt self-conscious, and he would tell me that I was beautiful. Our arguments were always few and far in between. We talked everything out, but when we did argue, it was usually about sex or lack thereof on my behalf and the things I refused to do in bed. It wasn't as if I didn't want to do them, it's just that I wasn't in the mood, and he understood. When I turned 39, my birthday party was revealing the new me. I spent all year in the gym, doing yoga and Pilates. My effort took me from being 180 to 135, and for me, it was an amazing transformation. I've always been a chubby girl, so to have a body that was tight and fit was a new experience. My ex-husband also went to the gym with me, but not as much. However, he went from 260 to 225 and was starting to shape his body. My ex-husband couldn't keep his hands off of me, but for some reason, I still wasn't in the mood. It's not like he didn't try. We went to dinners, danced, and did regular walks. He always helped around the house, and I could see in his eyes how much he loved and lusted for me. 20 years together and he still looked at me with desire. I believe any woman would desperately want that, but mentally, I just wasn't in the mood. At the time I thought I was going through early menopause since we only had sex 2, maybe 3 times a month and I was just a one and done, but he wanted more and no matter how much he tried, I just wasn't into it. He mentioned couple counseling and I refused. So now my selfishness comes into play. A new manager started working in my office a few days after my birthday. He was slightly younger and handsome, and for some reason, he took an interest in me. At first, I ignored him, then it went from ignoring to casual conversation, then he flirted and I showed him my ring. However, after 2 months of constant flirting, I flirted back which led to me telling him about my life, and I found myself thinking about him more and more. This was an emotional affair, I know that now, but at the time, I felt high. My ex-husband suspected there was something off with me. We had a heated argument about it, one that I honestly believe started. He went to kiss me and I subconsciously made a disgusted look. It wasn't towards my ex. I was thinking about this man when he leaned in and I felt disgusted with the whole thing. At least that is what I say to myself. A week after that day, I told the new manager to meet me at a cafe so we can talk. I had every intention to tell this man to leave me alone. To tell him that I can't do this, but before I could say anything to him, he kissed me and my mind went blank. That was the beginning of our 6-month affair. During that time I have done things to this man that my ex wanted. I was more eager, more willing. I was always in the mood. I believe it was because it was something new. My ex and I did have sex during this time, but not as frequently. I began pushing him away, nitpicking on the little habits, I even belittled him. I'm ashamed of how I treated him during that time. I only realized what I was doing when my brother came to visit me and told me that my ex confided to him about how depressed he was feeling and was thinking about filing a separation, saying that he felt that I don't love him anymore and he was starting to fall out of love with me and that snapped me out of it. So I immediately called it off, quit my job, and told myself that I was going to make my husband feel loved and wanted. I was going to fix this. I was going to be a better wife if I could. My AP showed up at my house with a box from my office. Stuff from my desk that I requested to have shipped. We spoke, he wanted to know what he did wrong and I told him that I needed to fix my marriage. I told him to leave and he wanted one last go around and I told him no and he begged, pleaded, and like a fool, I agree. We went to the guest room and we went at it. I do not know how long we were doing it, but when he was on top of me, I felt him violently jerk back and there was a loud bang. I sat up and my ex was looking at me, my AP was on the floor and there was a large hole in the wall. I tried to say something to my ex, but his eyes were bloodshot, there were tears flowing, and his lips were trembling. I could see he was in so much pain and I felt so disgusted. I watched as my AP stood up and attempted to leave. My ex looked at him and my AP told him that if he knew what was good for him, he'll step back. So my ex attacked him. I screamed and cried, telling my ex to stop, and out of desperation, I jumped on his back which resulted in me getting slammed to the floor. Everything got hazy for a while. Words sounded muffled, but when I came through, my ex had my AP on his side and he was on the phone. All I could do was stare at my AP's swollen face and the blood and teeth on the floor beside him. There was a loud bang on the door and I watched my ex put the phone on speaker, slowly placed it on the floor, dropped to his knees, and placed his hands on the back of his head. The door opened and the police came in, handcuffed him and the paramedics came in moments later. I soon learned that he called 911 on himself. Everything went to shit in a handbasket. At the hospital, my father didn't utter a word to me, he just looked at me with shame. My brother was yelling at me, he looked crushed. Asking me how could I do that to my ex? My mother was consoling me, telling me that it was alright which caused my father to yell at her. His family was furious, his sisters threatened and his parents looked like they wanted to send me to an early grave. I approached my children and they refused to speak to me, my sons couldn't even look at me. My AP was heavily injured and needed reconstructive surgery on his face, my ex practically shattered his face. At the hospital, a woman came to my room and immediately attacked me. My brother pulled her off of me and it turned out she was my AP's wife. I didn't know he was married. He never wore a ring. Never once said anything. It made me feel even more terrible. Leading to the trial, my boys stayed with their grandparents on my husband's side and my girls refused to talk to me. My ex didn't want to see me as well. I tried to visit him at county and I was denied. My brother made sure my ex went to the correctional facility he was working at so he could keep an eye on him. When I asked my brother if he could relay a message for me, he told me to go to hell. During the trial, it was the first time in 3 months that I saw him. He looked at me with such anger, it hurt more than anything I could ever imagine. He always looked at me with love, even when we were mad at one another, he always looked at me with love, but during that trial it was hate and I needed to excuse myself so I could cry in the restroom. As the days went by, I was forced to recount my affair in every detail for all to hear. When I told them how long it was, my ex looked crushed and my father stood up and walked out of the courtroom. During my ex testimony, I learned that he came home to surprise me with lunch and a weekend trip for two to the Catskills. He had a full romantic getaway planned, only to walk in on us, and he reacted. He stated when the AP ordered him to step aside, he snapped and beat him, only to stop when he tossed me off him. He quickly called 911 and heard the recording at court. Hearing the pain in his voice, his sobs as he did what the operator told him to do. It was soul-crushing. The AP couldn't verbally testify and was heavily medicated, so they used images of what he looked like, which turned my stomach because I was responsible for all this. My ex smashed his eye socket, cheekbones, and destroyed his jaw. They stated that there were bone fragments too small to piece together. My ex was charged with a third-degree felony and sentenced to 7 years, which caused my sons to shout in protest and my daughters and his family to let out a wail that haunts me to this day. That first 3 months was torturous. I was sued by my APSTB ex-wife for alienation of affection. My ex filed for divorce. My eldest moved out, my other son stayed in his room, and my twins were rebelling hard. My former sister-in-laws attacked me in the middle of Price Chopper. His mother spat in my face when I tried to apologize to her. My father and brother refused to speak to me. Eventually, I needed to find a new job. There was no money coming in and I nearly went through the savings, but I was pretty much blacklisted in my field. It was bad publicity for the accounting firm, so I started working in retail and worked as a seasonal H&R Block adjuster during the tax rush. I almost lost the house. My ex refused to allow me to visit him, and every letter was returned. Crying in the shower became an almost daily occurrence. My parents almost separated because my mother constantly defended me. My brother refused to acknowledge me. Even my friends who I had since grade school were divided. Soon I began to have thoughts of ending things, of picking up my belongings and disappearing. The guilt was so heavy. Eventually, I saw a therapist and she scolded me. Told me that I just got comfortable with my ex. I didn't see him as a husband. I saw him as a friend with benefits and I treated him as much. She's right. I did. I got too comfortable with him. I saw him as a companion. Yet he saw me as his wife, mother of his children, the woman he loved and desired. I took him for granted. Almost a year went by. A year of silence from my children. When I cooked dinner, they would collect their food and go to their rooms, refusing to even look at me. I did have a few meltdowns begging them to say something to me, but nothing. My brother got married and I wasn't invited, my kids were. I continued to try to visit my ex in hopes that he placed me on the visitor list, but I was always denied. My letters were still being returned. It made me severely depressed and I knew I deserved it. Then one day, out of the blue, my brother showed up. I was shocked to see him and happy. This was the first time since the trial he came to my house, and he just came to scold me. Told me that my ex was in the infirmary after getting stabbed. An inmate tried to sexually assault him in his cell, resulting in my ex getting stabbed in his stomach and the inmate getting his spine broken. My brother screamed at me, "You did this," before going back to his truck. I cried for days after that. Because he was right. I did this. I tried to visit him at the infirmary and I was still denied. For 4 additional years, I tried to talk to him and still wrote letters, but they were returned. Thankfully, our children visited their father, a lot. That is how I learned he was placed in protective custody by my brother since his attack. Through the years, my eldest went to the same college my ex attended, and even took the same major. He only calls his siblings. He never wanted to talk to me. He never comes to the house for the holidays, only to his grandparents. My other son followed suit, by going to the same college and refusing to call me as well. My twins were hard on me, but they visited their father weekly, which bettered their mood, and whenever they get overly rebellious, they had their uncle put them in their place, but my brother and I still hardly spoke. I tried to visit his wife when they had their first child, but I was asked to leave. My mother kept me in the loop on what was happening in their lives. My father still refused to acknowledge me. Then at the beginning of May this year, my kids were happy and my sons came home. I didn't know why and I didn't care. They were home. For 4 months my children were around and I did everything I could to show them how sorry I was. But I was mostly ignored, but they were talking to me and it made me so happy to have a conversation with them. To know what was happening in their lives. My eldest was dating a woman for over a year. My second born was on a college track team. Even my girls began to talk to me again and I hated myself even more for what I did to them. Seeing them smiling again, joking, and eating dinner together. I missed it so much. At the end of August, I was all gearing up for the twins' first day of their senior year, which also falls on their 18th birthday. I expressed my excitement over their birthday party, told them what I was planning to do, and without hesitation, my girls asked me if we can do it on a different day. It confused me because I thought we were starting to get better. When I asked why, one of them said, "Because Dad is throwing us a party and I don't want you near him." That comment shocked me. I asked when their father was released and they said he got out at the end of April for good behavior. I cried because he was out and it broke me a bit more. They were around more because he was out. They were happier and cheerful because they had their father back in their lives. It wasn't because we were starting to heal. They had him back. I asked where he was staying and they told me that he was staying with my brother. I tried calling. I needed to talk to him, but he refused. I tried going over holding all of the letters that were returned through the years and I saw him briefly, through the door crack. I shout out his name and I was asked to leave by my brother. I handed him the letters and left. When I got to the driveway I heard his voice. I turned around and he was walking towards me. I instantly started crying and went to hug him and he handed me back my letters. "You forgot this," he coldly said to me, and I cried watching him walk away. I begged him, I pleaded for him to just talk to me, and he just walked back into that house. My children were staring at me by the door and they all had no love in their eyes for me. At that moment I realized that my children were just tolerating me. However, I still want to fix this. I want to tell him how selfish I was. I want to tell him how much I missed him. Tell him that I am so sorry for destroying what we had. So I'm trying to still push through my daily life. I learned from my mother that my AP's ex-wife was visiting my ex 2 years ago and she's been coming around to see him. I don't care really. I just want him to somehow forgive me. I want him to talk to me. I want him to be beside me. I want him to look at me the way that he used to. I want my kids beside us. I just want my family back. Yet I know I don't deserve it. Even by some miracle, we become one again, it will never be the same. I was selfish and I wish I can take it all back. This is a response to my mother's post "My selfishness ruined my family." On support for Wayward. I'm a regular on Reddit, so I am using a throwaway because I really don't want any of the people I know in my social life to know that this is me. I strive to keep my past a secret. My college friends don't know that my dad was in prison. Nor do I care to tell them. So when I walked around campus and heard a lot of people talking about this post and fucking sharing it, brought back a lot of emotions that I have been trying to overcome. So I looked it up and there was enough information provided to know that it was about my family, and it angered me. I reached out to my mother, who began with the damn waterworks, and I yelled at her. When I went to see my dad and told him what I did, he yelled at me. My father is a good man. He only yelled at me for cursing my mother. Tells me that I may not love my mother, but I need to respect her. It's hard to respect someone like that. My father always struggled. He would drill into our heads that we should be grateful for growing up in an area where we wouldn't get attacked for getting good grades or getting caught reading by the kids. Where you're jumped for wanting white things like going to college. He told us it was like that for him in the South Bronx. My aunts told us how he joined a gang at 13 just so he can be left alone while he went to school. When he was 15, his father passed away from cancer, and my father had to be a surrogate parent to his 2 sisters. Since there was no life insurance, he worked and did what he had to do in order to help pay the rent and put food on the table while still attending school. My dad said it was fortunate that his mother remarried a good man and they moved to upstate New York for a better life. From what my uncle told me, he and his friends thought my dad was weird. It was the 90s and my dad walked into school with really baggy clothing and a Puerto Rican flag shirt, and they decided to mess with him. My uncle said they didn't expect my dad to instantly fight them and he kicked their asses, but instead of walking away, my dad helped him up and asked if he wanted to skip school, share a 40 and talk things out. My uncle said when my dad did that he knew they were going to be friends and they started hanging out. He introduced him to my mom and they hit it off. They went to the same college and by the end of their freshman year, they married. Growing up, my parents were the lovey-dovey couple. They were always holding hands, kissing, and it was really embarrassing. Even at the start of my senior year when everything went to shit. He was acting like a teenager when it came to my mom. He loved her. Respected her. I can honestly say he never placed her on a pedestal. He would lecture me that a woman will not respect a man who placed them on a pedestal, and when I asked why, he said because they will always be looking down on you. My dad told me that his father and stepfather had the same mindset. You treat your wife as your equal. She is your best friend, she is your confidant like you are hers. My dad had his quirks. He was a big guy and always joking. 5'11", 260 pounds, and despite being heavy, he was very active. I used to love it when he would sing to my mom. We all did. He would serenade her, he would buy her flowers, and write on the card because it's a Thursday and I was thinking about you. He wrote her the occasional love letter and would defend her honor when someone was rude or disrespectful to her. Always told her how beautiful she was. My dad showed the girls what kind of a man they should have in their lives. When it came to my uncle, my dad was always there for him. Even when everyone thought he was a lost cause, my dad never gave up on him, and as my grandfather once said, knocked the stupid out of him and left behind the man he was supposed to be. That phrase always made me laugh. My dad showed me how a man, a friend, and a husband are supposed to act, and my mother, before her affair, always loved my dad. He always supported her and encouraged her. He was her one-man pep rally when she was down in the dumps, and she was his. To all of us they had the marriage we wanted to have. Then my mom fucked it up. I remember those months. She would talk to my father as if he was beneath her and he pushed back but restrained himself. Even though my father graduated college and has a successful career as a financial advisor. He can go from zero to ghetto in 5 seconds. Grandma said he was like his father. Kind, respectable, and helpful, but wouldn't hesitate to rip your throat out with his bare hands. My dad tried everything. buying her flowers, trying to take her out to dinner, dancing, but she was in her own little world. Treating him like shit. We all saw it. It was really having a big effect on my brother and twin sisters, but my dad would smile and tell us that they will work it out. He would tell us that mom was probably really stressed at work and bringing it home, and I believed that. Especially when she quit her job. I honestly thought it was her job that was the problem. Then my dad was arrested. Mom, do you know the embarrassment we felt when the entire school was talking about what happened? My dad was arrested because my mom couldn't keep her legs closed. I couldn't bear to look at you, which was why I went to stay at grandma's house. The sight of you disgusted me, and when I visited dad he couldn't bear to look at me. He was ashamed. He told me he failed as a husband and failed as a man. I told him he didn't, but he said he did because a man would have thought about the consequences of his actions before doing something so fucking stupid, and he failed as a husband because his wife fucked another man. I told him to please look at me and he wouldn't. Then you had the audacity to ask us for forgiveness, and for the first time in my life I wanted to physically hurt you. We all were hurting and you wanted forgiveness. When I sat in that trial, listening to that 911 call was the worst 25 minutes of my life. 25 minutes listening to my father, who would have killed and died for you, crying. Asking the operator for help. Telling that woman that he think he just killed someone. Listening to that woman talking him down while hearing him say over and over, "The love of my life cheated on me," hurt us more than anything. I know you tried to act as a character witness for dad. We all told you not to do it and you did it anyway. Why? Did you want to show us that you still loved him? Tell the court that he's a good man? Because in my opinion, that cross-examination where you told everyone how long you were with that son of a bitch was why we lost him. Why he was sent to jail, and I believe if we had an actual lawyer instead of an appointed one, he would have walked. I had anger issues because of that. My brother became a closet alcoholic. One of the twins was suicidal and you didn't notice. All you wanted was to try and fix things with dad, leaving me to keep my siblings afloat. I hated you. In some way, I still do. When I went to college, I wanted nothing to do with you. Like my father, I had to be a surrogate parent to my siblings. I was working a full-time job, going to college, and sending you money to help pay for the bills. I don't know why you made it look like you were doing it on your own. Mom, I know it was hard. I know you were really depressed, but you had help with the bills and grandma did defend you, but she only did it because everyone was against you. At least that is what the twins believe. When dad got stabbed, I almost had a nervous breakdown. I just saw him that day. I was poking fun at how muscular he got, and we had a good laugh on what dad called the prison body plan. He made it sound like a fun commercial. I was halfway back to school when I got the phone call. I nearly crashed the car because my brain turned off. It was hard for everybody. I didn't tell anyone this, but I sat outside that Sob's apartment. I wanted to fuck him up so badly. But when I saw him walking with that cane, I remembered what dad said and drove off. As the years passed, grandma died, then grandpa a few days later from broken heart syndrome, and dad couldn't attend the funeral. Did you know that both his sisters got married in the waiting area just so he could give them away? The damage you've done to all of us is tremendous, and it didn't help that you kept asking us to forgive you. To give you another chance. You never gave us room to comprehend, to heal. You just kept asking, and all I see is that you wanted to make yourself feel better. You didn't give a damn. You didn't try, you just gave us space and acted as if we were supposed to suddenly act like we were normal again. Yes, you did try in the later years, but didn't during the time you were supposed to, when it was the most important. When dad got out, he told us to start talking to you. Told us that you're a good mother to us and therefore we should show you some respect. So we did, and it made you happy. For a while, I remembered what it was like not to hate you. Dad was having issues trying to find work at first, but one of his old clients hired him. I didn't expect the twins to throw that bomb at you. Dad did not want you to know he was out. So when you appeared, it really bothered him. He threw up after he spoke to you. He said the very sight of you sickened him. As for your statement in your post about that ex-wife coming to see dad. She's been coming to see dad weekly for over 3 years, and they've been spending time together since he got out. So please stop building a castle in the sky of the two of you getting back together. If you want to talk about this, call me. You want to fix things with your children? Call me. What you did last week, posting what is arguably the worst moment in our lives, is pure selfishness, as your title suggested. I told dad about this and he doesn't care. He said you're just the mother of his children, nothing else.